because I'm here to tell you there's one word to be wary of for the rest of your life: shareholder value. Value creation and shareholder value are two very different things. Now, let's look at something I call turning potential into production. Something that's a win-then-play strategy. Win-then-play has a few different components. The first thing is, how do you keep a lot more of the money that you make without budgeting, sacrificing, or scrimping? It's all through efficiency. Next is, how do you generate and create economic independence where you have enough recurring revenue coming in to cover your basic expenses? Then we really start to look at this cycle of creation and idea optimization, which is how do you profit from an idea before raising capital, before spending a single penny? And then that starts to bring that cash flow and that momentum up front. So the cycle of creation integrates and utilizes something called the value equation. So the value equation is mental capital multiplied by your relationship capital will dictate or create your financial capital. So financial capital is a receipt. It's the receipt of your knowledge applied to support others, serve others, solve their problems, and deliver value. So there's a bridge between these two things, and that bridge is business. Business is the bridge that brings mental and relationship capital together. And I'll hear people say, you know, Garrett, my grandfather was the smartest person I ever met, but he never had any money. I'm like, right, he might have been really smart at, like, you could ask him a question, he could answer. He might have been amazing within the family, but did that knowledge ever transfer or translate into the rest of the world? Did it impact strangers? Did it impact customers, subscribers, right, clients? And a lot of times the answer is no. And if we go back in those times, 50 years ago, well, it was harder. The internet didn't exist. Now we can have someone that's 10 years old that's making millions of dollars. I was really excited when we had this video that we did hit over 1 million people watch it on YouTube. And when I told my kids, they're like, well, guess what? Jacksepticeye has like 20 million subscribers. And I'm like, well, good for Jacksepticeye, right? Sorry, I thought it would be impressive. Like it used to be, like they see me online before they knew all this, like, you're like famous. I'm like, in very small circles, kids, yes. And they used to think I could beat up Mike Tyson, as I was sharing, which that was never gonna happen, but now they know that I can't beat up Mike Tyson. I've lost all of that heroism that kind of comes at a young age. So mental capital, the bridge to relationship capital is business. So it's how many people are we impacting, or how deeply are we impacting those people? And if you want more money, deliver more value. You want to deliver more value? Go back to the impact equation. How many people or how deeply are we impacting? And you could mess around with that equation, right? Existing customers, keeping them longer, adding more value and services to them, or reaching new people that you're not currently reaching in a most scalable way. Let's apply that to the cycle of creation. The cycle of creation, it looks like this. Begins with an idea. And ideas, most people think ideas are more valuable than they are. Ideas alone are not that useful. They're not that valuable because an idea is typically individualized where someone has it inside of their own mind. And look, I've met people that'll say, oh, I had an idea for this and someone else came out with it. Oh, I had this idea, I didn't take action on it. The first thing we do in an idea to make it more valuable is we add mental and relationship capital to it to turn it into a concept, right? So when we add mental capital and or relationship capital, a concept means it's now been shared. I've now talked to someone about it. It's now written down. There's other people asking questions. It starts to formalize into our life. And actually, as soon as we share it with someone, it becomes more real. It's one thing to think of something on our own. As soon as we share it, it takes a degree of risk to share it with someone else. Now, who we share that with is critical. Because relationship capital, I think it's critical to categorize it in at least 3 areas. The first area is friends. And these are just my terms. Friends are people we invite into our lives, that we say yes to their invitations, we spend a lot of time with them because they uplift us, they inspire us, they encourage us, they love to see our success. Those are friends. You can do business with friends, you could do just have enjoyment with them, but these are places and people where you can share your vision and the most important parts of your life. People that are buddies are different than friends. Buddies are like people I hung out with when I was in junior high or elementary school, but I still keep in touch with them. They still live in my hometown. They think I'm weird, but we could still have fun together. I don't teach them all this kind of stuff. It's not what they're really thinking about. We talk about going hunting or fishing. We talk about, the good old days where we did a prank or told some joke or rode four-wheelers. And it's great. I'm just not inviting them into my business world. And I'm not sitting there trying to share my entire vision, because sometimes buddies will be scared of your vision. And they're going to be, well, how would that work? And you don't want to do that. And that sounds really risky. So you got to be protective of these visions, right? The third category are friendly. Friendly are those people that we say no to in the most polite way possible, right? And we never invite to anything. Like, I took a flight to San Diego. My wife's ex-boyfriend, just before I started dating her, happened to be on the flight. So I grabbed him by the shoulder. I'm like, what's up, man? It's good to see you, because it was. We had a quick conversation, and then he responded by saying, we should do lunch together sometime. I put my other hand on his other shoulder. I said, that's not going to happen, but I appreciate the offer. So I did it very politely. But, I wasn't going to shine him on or waste any time, because it's really difficult for human beings to say no. That's a difficult thing. But we can say no politely. Like, I've gotten really good with certain phrases like, you know what, I don't have capacity for that right now, but if that changes, I'll get back to you. I'm working on 3 sole purpose projects right now. I'm writing a book, I'm filming a course, and I'm leading a workshop. Anything outside of it's not part of my bandwidth. So I'll let you know if that changes. I don't ever say, get back with me, because now I'm inviting that relationship that I don't necessarily want. And some of the places and people that I moved to friendly opened up the time to do things that were more extraordinary. Open up the time on legacy, on making it count, on spending time with my family, on going on trips and vacations. Because people that are addicted to drama take up 10 times more time than you'd ever think, and probably 20 times more energy than you'd ever think. And if you just stop inviting them to things, they don't show up most of the time. And if you say no to all their invitations, they stop inviting you, and that's a wonderful place to be. Because there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much of bandwidth that I have. I want to spend it with people that celebrate my wins, that encourage me and move it forward. So spend that time with friends. So that's the right type of relationship capital. So I like to share these ideas with the right people, And the right people where you really want to make it into a concept are the people that write you a check. They're the very best place to turn an idea to a concept. I've made money off concepts over and over again. Killing sacred cows was a concept. And then we went out and we said, hey, if we were to release this book, would you want it? People said yes. We're like, what would you like to see? And we surveyed them inside of the book. And we narrowed it down. We cut one thing off that we were going to put into it because it didn't seem to resonate with everyone. We filmed a DVD, if you remember those things, and then we did a teleseminar series. And we pre-sold 22,000 copies of the book while it was a concept. Pre-sold 22,000 copies. We already won before this book was done, because I already had an audience, I already had feedback, and the very people that we raised the money from were the most excited to get it. So we already had won, right? That's a win then play, turning a concept into profitability. I also did that with the very first video series we put together. We went out and surveyed a bunch of people. If anyone responded, we had a salesperson call them. We sold it for $1,250 rather than the $2,500 it was going to cost when it was finished. They gave us feedback. We ended up building tests and additional workbooks because of that feedback. And it forced us to get it done on time, because we were filming sometimes 1 in the morning because we had a deadline. We knew we were filming it for real people, not just filming it and hoping that someone was going to see it one day. These are win then play, where you can be profitable at the concept level. Now, the magic is when you move from concept to framework, right? Framework is where delegation can exist. Framework is where the miracles happen. See, if you have a compelling vision, because brains is what matters in today's world, and if you take time to think, if you get really clear about something that inspires other people, they will help you build it because they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. So you may not have all the mental capital of how this is actually going to come out. I don't have the mental capital of how Wealth Factory is going to get 1 million people economically independent. Now, we have the frameworks and the formulas, but how are we going to reach 1 million people? We got capacity issues. We've got scalability issues. But what it brought about was collaboration. Other financial people that shared our values, that said, I'm inspired by what you do, how can we be part of it? What can we do? And we created this thing called Ripwater, which this is our manual, and you're welcome to take a look at it. This is for the financial industry, saying, you love these concepts, you subscribe to our value system, we would like to collaborate and have a strategic relationship with you. So that came about after the concept of 1 million existed. See, because if you know how to accomplish it, it's not a vision, it's a goal. If you know how to accomplish it, it's a goal. If you don't know how to accomplish it, it's a vision. And visions is where the miracles come about because other people can now come and bring their capabilities. They can support you. They can innovate. They can solve the issues. One of my favorite comedians, Bill Burr, jokes about how Steve Jobs didn't do anything. It's like, Steve Jobs, what did he do? He didn't build anything. He had a vision and then other people built it. He couldn't program. He couldn't he couldn't put an iPhone together, but he could create that concept. He could sell that concept to people. I was in Vegas 15 years ago. Donald Trump was speaking, and he was talking about building this tower in Vegas. It was going to be the best hotel, the most magnificent building. And as he kept saying we over and over again, or I, sorry, it was Donald. He said I over and over again, he was going to build it. The reality is he didn't pick up a hammer. He inspired other people to build that, right? And those other people said, yeah, I want to be part of that. So that's the framework. The framework is where delegation, where division of labor, where teamwork, where capabilities, where all this relationship capital can rock your world. I had this mentor, and he told me this story all the time about going and having lunch with a billionaire once a month. They became close friends. And every time he'd have lunch with them, he was learning something new. And he said one of the biggest lessons he had is the guy he was meeting with was Phil Romano of the Macaroni Grill and Fuddruckers, and actually was part of the Heart stint, getting the distribution on that, where he made a lot of money on that. So he said he had an idea. And my mentor's like, well, tell me about it. And he tells him the idea. And at the end of telling him the idea, my mentor's like, that's an amazing idea. That's something that is so needed in the marketplace. The felt need was massive. And he said, well, who do you know that can run this? My mentor said, I don't really know anyone, but I'll keep an eye out. So the next month when they have dinner, he says, how's that business going? He goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, what are you doing? What's going on? He goes, I'm looking for someone to run it. I haven't done anything else. That's my sole focus. He says, you know what? You're a multimillionaire. He says, you've gotten there through a lot of hustle. You have intelligence. He goes, but you immediately hit the ground running and you just work, and all that hard work crowds out the opportunity for other people to support you. He said, I'm a billionaire, and here's the big difference. I never start something until I found someone who can run it better than I can. See, that's building the right framework. And that's adding massive relationship capital. A lot of people that are uber productive through willpower don't know how to ask for support, don't know how to create a framework for other people to come in, and then they always hit this ceiling of complexity where they're like, oh, I'm exhausted, I'm exacerbated, I don't have any additional energy to put towards something, and they're no longer thinking, they're just doing. And every time they do that, the trap is that they really just created a job for themselves called a business, because if they walk away from it, there's nothing there. So it takes mental capital and relationship capital, and the mental capital between idea and concept is different than the mental capital between concept and framework. This is innovation, this is delegation. This is creation, this is like frameworks and teamwork and structure and support and relationship capital that has to do with other people doing this. So you've got to learn about scalability and leverage and hiring. You don't need to know that in starting out an idea. That's why you could see someone that's so fast to 0 to 1 million, but then they struggle to get to 5 million. Because everything that got them to 1 million is harming them in getting to 5 million. When I was at that point and someone said, oh, have you read E-Myth? I'm like, yeah, I've read it. They're like, so you're working too much in the business versus on the business. I'm like, you're right. But it didn't make, like, I could intellectually get it, but I couldn't emotionally get it because I was so used to doing the work. And that's where I found the value. I had a mentor that said, I was telling him about a technological meltdown we were having at the firm, like server issues and all this kind of stuff. And he goes, so what happened when you walked in the office? I'm like, everybody's in panic, they're bringing it to me. He goes, do you think if Warren Buffett showed up to one of his companies today and they had a technological problem, anyone would tell him? And that's when it hit me. I was like, oh, got it, right? And when people used to expect me to sit down with them one-on-one, I just had to create more authority. I had to add more mental capital. Writing a book created authority. Putting out video series created more authority, right? So the relationship capital of bringing in Rich Christensen to do this event brought a whole new level of mental capital to this entire organization because of what he's created, experienced, and how he teaches it. Right now, from framework, we move to the product, service, or experience that is what they're looking for. And then we go right back to the idea and say, how do we improve it? How do we reach more people? How do we more deeply impact them? And the way we move through each one of the phases of the cycle of creation is more mental capital and more relationship capital. That mental capital doesn't have to be ours. It could be someone we find, which is part of the relationship capital. And the relationship capital could either be who we work with as far as clients or who we work with as far as a team. But you're one idea or one relationship away from getting to the next level of prosperity. And I think this simplifies business in a lot of ways when we realize there's different phases. And when we realize we can make money as soon as we enter the concept phase and all along the way. The old days of raising capital from people that aren't related to the end product, using venture capital, which could be extraordinarily dangerous and difficult, we can use the capital from our very fans. We see things like Indiegogo and Kickstarter and GoFundMe. We see that the very people that are saying, I want that, get to buy it before it exists, and they're part of the story. They're part of the experience. Just like when we go on a trip and we book that trip, before we go on the trip, we're enjoying the trip. Before they get the product, they're enjoying the product. And we could speckle all this great value along the way and even get feedback. People support which they help to create. When I did 5-Day Weekend, we had reader groups. They read every word of the book. They gave us feedback along the way. They were already recommending the book before it came out. And then they're making posts about it. See, build the momentum with the very people that want to pay you. Test your ideas on check writers. Get the feedback not from family and friends, but from customers. And build that momentum. We've been doing this for a long time. The Statue of Liberty was given to the United States by France. But you know what wasn't given to us? Concrete, visitor center, a platform so it wasn't just laying in the Hudson collecting who knows what in the Hudson River. What they did is they just put ads out in the New York magazines, and people were donating as little as 6 cents, and the average donation was like $1, and they were able to erect this and put it into a visitor center, and they were the very first people that got to go visit. So they were already anticipated. They were already excited. They didn't go and say, let's raise taxes. They didn't go and say, let's go find a group of investors that just want to squeeze as much profit out of this and they don't care about it. Because I'm here to tell you, there's one word to be wary of for the rest of your life: shareholder value. Value creation and shareholder value are two very different things. Shareholder value says we will do whatever we can to extract profit so that shareholders make money, regardless of the consequence of the end user or the customer. And value creation, when you're in the win-then-play model, is always triple win. How do I win? How does the customer win? And how does the world win? It's not a win-lose proposition like shareholder value. There was a company that was out there just buying other pharmaceutical companies. And in order to increase profit, they found ones that had a patent where they were the only ones offering the pill. They would buy that company, completely collapse all R&D down to maybe less than 3%, where it's typically 18%, and then they would raise the price of that pill up to 5,000% in a year, and now families were $200,000 to $500,000 a year for this life-saving pill. That was shareholder value. It maximized shareholder value. Remember everything from the EpiPen to the guy that was going and, on the diabetic stuff and got a lot of news? But that was actually shareholder value. Value creation says, how do I support Michael? What do I do to deliver value, solve problems? How do I serve him? And not just with what I know, with who I know. And I just believe that I make those connections regardless of profitability, because I'm making a deposit into relationship capital. And those deposits, I may never tap into it, but I become a person of value. And when you're a person of value, wealth is inevitable. Cycle of creation, win first, then play. Define who is your customer, serve them early, often, and always, and continue to create recurring revenue with the people that love you the most by adding the most value.